Welcome to our picks for 3 Down Nation, Week 14 in the Canadian Football League. JC, you bested me on Labor Day weekend. I went 1-2 against the spread. You went 2-1. You had the Boatman winning that game, so credit to you. One of very few members of the media.
It wasn't indigestion.
Yeah, it wasn't indigestion. You might have been the only person in the world to pick the Toronto Argonauts in that game. That was amazing.
McGuire also picked the Argos in our 3 Down Nation picks, which whenever I'm picking with BMAC, I'm a little bit scared because sometimes he has some wild takes, but he's done pretty well this year. So maybe being on the same page wasn't such a bad thing.
Honestly, BMAC so far this year might be the best person in the world picking against the spread for CFL games. Like, he has been remarkably good this year. You got to give him credit for that. And I credit you for picking the Argonauts to not only cover that spread, but win the game. You were correct. We both, unfortunately, got beat when the Saskatchewan Roughriders, I mean, they still won that game, but they very much let the Winnipeg Blue Bombers back into it late. I did not anticipate that. I thought the Saskatchewan Roughriders were going to cover that spread. And then we both, of course, were correct in eating the points for the Calgary Stampeders to win.
Actually, I think I was 1-2 too, because I take Edmonton.
Did you lie to me, JC?
I
did
you
do the
math in
to
my
me?
head? We did not fact check this segment before. We were going off of memory. I think I picked Edmonton to backdoor cover. That was a mistake.
I'm pretty sure you did, now that you mention it. I mean, I was sure of my picks. I trusted you on the honor system to know your picks. But I appreciate you being honest about it now. You did. I appreciate your honesty now. Okay, so both 1-2. Not a great Labor Day weekend, but it was a good Labor Day weekend of action. I mean, the Battle of Alberta left something to be desired. We do get a second crack at it, though, this week in Edmonton, so hopefully the second edition is better. The first two games were absolutely sensational, so hopefully we keep that up as we head into Week 14. Speaking of, let's get into the games. The Ottawa Redblacks are 7-point home underdogs to the BC Lions on Friday night, where they'll look to avoid a third straight loss. Both of these teams are coming off a bye, though only one will have its starting quarterback in the lineup, as Drew Brown will miss a second straight start due to a knee injury, giving way to Dustin Crum. Can the Lions pounce on the wounded Redblacks, or can Ottawa get a win to help keep their playoff hopes alive?
Well, the concern about this BC Lions team is all about the defense, and I don't think you are less concerned coming off the bye, because there's some serious problems along that defensive line right now. Sianga Tehema went on the 6-game injured list. Christian Covington went on the 6-game injured list. And Dwayne Hendricks is also going to miss this game. So that's 3 crucial defensive linemen who will not be in the lineup. And Gary Peters is a game-time decision as well with a knee injury. That scares me a little bit. But if there was ever an opportunity for a get-right game, it's against an Ottawa Redblacks team without Drew Brown. They have not been good with Dustin Crum under center. He does not scare me in the least as a passer. I think this will be one of those games where the Lions dominate and are able to have success both defensively and offensively. Nathan Rourke will get it done with his unit. Mike Benavides will be able to have his unit have success against a weaker offense, as he has shown so far this season. I'm taking the Lions, and I'm eating all the points.
I'm with you, JC. I think the BC Lions are an underrated team right now, especially coming off the bye. Yeah, their defense got absolutely lit up by Nick Arbuckle, not discrediting that. But they've had a bye week to lick their wounds, study the film. And that unit is still 4th in the CFL in yards allowed per play. Like, that's not a bad spot to be. This team, I think, has largely been hurt by giveaways. They are the worst team in the CFL in terms of turnover ratio. I don't see that continuing through the rest of the season, and I don't see that continuing in this game. They're also, by the way, 1st in offensive yards per play, which is a great stat to have. I think Nathan Rourke could chew this Red Black secondary apart. Yeah, they've got Robert Priester back there for the Red Blacks. Yeah, you've got Mark Milton starting after being acquired via trade from the Toronto Argonauts. The Red Blacks are also banged up in other spots, right? Like Cleon Lang, not going to play in this one. Darius Bladdock, not going to play in this one. Like, this team has not been dominant in the trenches so far this season, and now they're losing some of their best offensive linemen. So I am not high on the Ottawa Redblacks in this one. Dustin Crum should be noted. He's 1-2 as a starter this year. That's not terrible. Drew Brown, for the record, is 2-5. That's not really any better than Dustin Crum, but obviously Dustin Crum not capable of pushing the ball down the field the same way as we've seen from Drew Brown. more mobile, right? Can make plays with his legs, but I don't see him as someone who's going to be able to put up 35, 40 points here. And Nathan Rourke in that offense, I think very well could. So I'm happy to take the Lions here, and I'm not scared to eat those many points. A touchdown is fine with me.
The Montreal Alouettes are 3.5 point home underdogs to the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Saturday afternoon, and the team is finally starting to get healthy. Austin Mack, Tyson Philpott, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, and Mustafa Johnson are among those who could be back in the lineup, though it appears James Morgan will make a second straight start with Davis Alexander still out. Meanwhile, the Tiger Cats have lost three straight and could be knocked out of first place in this one if they lose to the Owls. Who will take this matchup?
Yeah, when I saw the first injury report of the week from the Alouettes this week, I thought about that great scene in Mrs. Doubtfire, one of my all-time favorite comedies, where the late great Robin Williams says, "Help is on the way, dear," because that's exactly what that injury report said. It was like, holy smokes, big player back, big player back, big player back. And look, I think the Alouettes deserve some criticism for how some of their backups have not necessarily come in and blown the doors off. The depth of that team has really been tested the last 5-6 weeks, and I don't think it's passed that test with flying colors. That said, I mean, we saw Toronto and Ottawa get obliterated by injuries out of the gate this season. And we saw Montreal through the middle part of this season really get obliterated by injuries. And for their sake, I'm thrilled that they're getting healthy right now. Obviously, Tyson Philpott and Austin Mack, two very good targets. Tyler Snead, who's been their number one with those two out, is a little bit banged up. We won't know until Friday if he's going to play or not. We're recording this Thursday, so check back to the website for up-to-the-minute updates, of course, on all these moves. But like, this D-line has been great this season, and Mustafa Johnson might be the best D-lineman the Alouettes have. If he's ready to go, all of a sudden, a very good front just gets even better. And then, of course, Marc-Antoine Dequoy coming back helps. I actually think Arthur Hamlin has been great back there for them, replacing him. One of few players, I think, who's stepped up in Montreal and been just as good as the guy in front of him. But still, you need depth. And so I think those are all big moves for the Alouettes. The big one, of course, is under center. Davis Alexander was limited on Wednesday. I doubt he plays in this one. And James Morgan, like, for a first-time starter, I thought was fine 2 weeks ago against Winnipeg. Of course, this team coming off a bye. But I'm not super enthused by what I saw. And on the flip side, I think the Hamilton Tiger Cats are going to come into this game PO'd. Like, these two teams matched up in week 4. The Hamilton Tiger Cats blew the doors off the Alouettes. They won that game by 18 points. So you mentioned, JC, that, yeah, the Alouettes can take first place in the East with a win, but they'd have to win this game by 19 or more points. I don't see them winning this game, and I certainly don't see them winning it by a bunch of points. I'm happy to take the Hamilton Tiger Cats here. I think they get off this 3-game losing skid. Obviously, the offense has been dynamite as of late. The defense, again, got lit up by Nick Arbuckle, but maybe it's time we just put some respect on the Toronto Argonauts. We stop being surprised that Nick Arbuckle's lighting people up, because he's letting everybody up as of late. So I'm happy to take the Hamilton Tiger Cats to win and cover this spread at 3.5 points.
For me, the big question in this game is what will be stronger, a shot in the arm or a kick in the you-know-what? Because that's what the Hamilton Tiger Cats got last week when they lost to the Argos in the Labor Day Classic, the one game that you absolutely have to win if you are a Ticats player or coach. You know the pressure is on, and they lost that in dramatic fashion when they were heavily favored. And frankly, they shouldn't have lost that game, especially with all the rest that they had coming off that long bye week. I think they're going to come in here fired up. I think they've got the weapons to get it done. I like all these additions coming back for the Alouettes. I think that bodes well for them going forward. But as you mentioned, Hodge, James Morgan, if he is still the one under center, he has been just okay, just fine, passable as a quarterback in this league. I think when you're going up against a team that has Bo Levi Mitchell and has Kenny Lawler and has all those weapons, Keandre Smith and Shamar Bridges and Tim White and all those guys, you need better than fine from your quarterback. And that's been the struggle for the Montreal Alouettes, is they haven't had good enough offensive play to get it done, despite the fact that their defense is so strong. I see the Hamilton Tiger Cats taking this one. I'm going to take them to cover the spread as well. I think it'll be a touchdown game, not a field goal game. But if it creeps any higher, I would consider taking the Owls to cover.
The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are 1-point home favorites over the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Saturday afternoon for the annual Banjo Bowl. These two teams clashed in an incredible Labor Day Classic last weekend as the Riders avoided a late scare when Tavon Campbell recorded a pick two, not pick six, pick two off Zach Collaros in the final minute of the game. Can the Blue Bombers win a sixth straight Banjo Bowl, or will the Saskatchewan Roughriders spoil the party?
I love the Saskatchewan Roughriders as a team, and I was confident that they were going to blow the doors off the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last week, and they didn't. They let them back into that football game. Winnipeg wasn't able to close it out, though. And I think at home with the crowd behind them in what I would argue is currently the toughest place to play in the CFL, with all due respect to Mosaic Stadium last week, Princess Auto Stadium for the Banjo Bowl, maybe the toughest environment in the toughest week in the league overall. I think that is going to lift Winnipeg's sails, and they are going to be able to eke out a short victory. I imagine this is going to come down to a Sergio Castillo kick late. That's how I see this game playing out. I am a little bit concerned by Winnipeg's receiving core. Dalton Schoen didn't practice on the first day of the week. They were already banged up in that unit, but Ontario Wilson is coming back. Presumably he plays this week. That will give them another weapon for Zach Collaros if they get Brady Oliveira more involved than he was last week earlier on. I think they can have some success with that home crowd behind them. I'm taking the Bombers.
I've also got the Blue Bombers here. I said it on last week's show. I was going to take the home teams in this home and home. I'm glad I took the Riders last week. I'm rolling with the Bombers this week. And look, the 5 sacks from last week, not pretty, right? I went back and watched the film on all of those. The first one, Chris Kolinkowski doesn't get over in slide protection. I asked him about it at practice on Wednesday, and he said, yeah, Micah Johnson's bearing down, and I'm just trying to do too much. Like, I'm trying to get in Micah's grill and then slide, and he was just late on the slide. Like, a lot of people blamed Patrick Neufeld, the guard, for that sack. It wasn't Patty's fault. That was on the center, Chris Kolinkowski, and I think in those type of big game Labor Day, adrenaline running kind of games, right? The ones that really stand out where it's not just, oh, it's week 4 and we're playing against this team on a Thursday night. Like the ones that you really get going for. Sometimes that can be a thing where guys just try to do too much. Yeah, the second sack was Gabe Wallace completely whiffing on Malik Carney. But sacks 3 and 4, I thought were more coverage sacks with Zach trying to step up and avoid like get out of a pocket that wasn't really collapsing. And then the fifth one was just a complete overload blitz that I don't think was protected well enough. So I'm not making excuses for the Bombers. 5 sacks is far too many, and the Riders, of course, deserve credit for getting home for those. But my point is, I think the Bombers are going to be able to clean a lot of that up for this game. Zach Collaros, despite the pick 2, everyone's talking about the sacks of the pick 2. I thought he had a pretty awesome game in that Banjo Bowl, like maybe his best game of the season. The deep shots to Nick Dembski, Carrick Wheatfall, absolutely sensational. And he did his best job by far, I thought, of actually distributing the football evenly. Like he looked to Dylan Mitchell, Kevin Sklarcius, brilliant catch along the sideline. Like if the whole receiving core is going to get involved, this team is going to be more dangerous. Now, the issue at which you raised, JC, is on point. Dalton Schoen tore his ACL last year, missed 6 games earlier this year due to a non-contact knee injury. Well, he suffered another non-contact knee injury. Like, I think the long-term health of Dalton Schoen needs to be a serious concern in Bomberland. That said, Pokey Wilson is back, and on Wednesday, he said, yeah, there are some things that are confusing me about this offense. Of course, new offensive coordinator this year with Jason Hogan in, but really all that's changed is the terminology. Like he'll get a word in the huddle, not know what it means, and Zach is able to say, oh, it's just this from last year. And then Pokey goes, okay, perfect. I know exactly what I'm doing. So I think he's going to be able to play in this one. Again, the Riders are a very good team. They're 9-2. They're the top team in the league for a reason. That said, I think the Bombers will best them. Princess Auto Stadium is unbelievable. And I say it every year. If you've never been to Banjo Bowl, and I'd say this about Labor Day Classic, which I've been to as well in Regina, if you haven't ever been to either game, doesn't matter if you're a Bomber fan, doesn't matter if you're a Rider fan, or even a football fan. To me, it's just a must-attend game for anybody who likes to have fun, because holy smokes, those games are so much fun. I'm taking the Bombers, and I think this line is in the right spot. -1, I agree, JC. Could very well be a field goal kind of game.
The Edmonton Elks are 6-point home underdogs to the Calgary Stampeders on Saturday evening, where they'll look to bounce back following an embarrassing performance in the Labor Day Classic. Edmonton's defense actually had a solid day to limit Vernon Adams Jr. to under 200 passing yards, but still lost by 21 points as the offense simply struggled to move the football. Can the Elks fare better this time around, or will the Stampeders keep on rolling?
Yeah! I'm riding with the Stampeders. This team has been unbelievable as of late. And as promised on this week's podcast, I'm cracking out the cowboy hat, which kept me sunless at the farm wedding I was at on the weekend. It was great. You got to protect the dome, especially when you don't got any hair on there. So the Edmonton Elks, look, I think their 3-game winning streak was a nice story. I think there's things that this team can build upon. But this offense does not have the firepower right now to compete with what's been, with all due respect to the defenses in Saskatchewan and Montreal, the best in the CFL by a considerable margin. Jalen Hutchings out of practice on Wednesday with a groin injury. That concerns me a little bit. He's obviously been tremendously impactful for the Stampeders this season. For my money, the best defensive player in the CFL so far in 2025. That said, I still think this unit is just too good. Yeah, it's hard to beat the same team back to back. Yeah, it's tough to beat your division rival. Yeah, it's a short week. Like, I get that there's a lot of elements here that could give the Elks a fighting chance. But to me, I'm surprised this is only a 6-point line. Like, Commonwealth Stadium does not provide much of a home field advantage relative to other venues in the CFL. And the Calgary Stampeders just absolutely mopped the floor with the Elks at a 21-point win on Labor Day. And that was with Vernon Adams Jr., as you said, JC, having like a relatively poor game. Didn't turn the ball over, but he also really struggled to push the ball downfield. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think he's going to be very good in this game. So I'm very happy to take the Stampeders. I would be happy to take them up to -9. I really would. I know, again, the game's in Edmonton, but that doesn't much scare me. I'm happy to roll with the Stampeders here and eat the points.
I don't have a cowboy hat, but I am wearing assless chaps right now in honor of my Stampeders pick. I won't show you. I promise I won't show you.
Oh, I wish I was blind right now.
I am riding with the Stampeders as well this week. There is absolutely nothing that I saw last week that would suggest that these two teams are even remotely close to each other right now. I know there's a little bit of injury concern to Calgary's best defensive player in Jalen Hutchings, but they've got enough pieces around that they can eat against that Edmonton O-line regardless. I think it will give a chance for other guys to shine even more because this is a fantastic defensive unit, as we've talked about in the past. And the Edmonton Elks are just an average to below average offensive unit. Even with Cody Fajardo giving them some belief, I think they're a little bit limited in the receiving core, and they're extremely limited in the offensive line. I don't know how quickly Carter O'Donnell, who was signed this week, can get up to speed and actually be involved in that unit. I would think it would be optimistic to expect it to be this week. Certainly in a couple weeks' time, he could be a big addition, but it's tough to learn all those protections that quickly, especially when you're not a guy who's coming back to the CFL, but a guy who's coming in for the first time. I just don't see any scenario where the Elks can even keep it close against this Calgary team. I think there is a chasm between the two of them, much like the chasm between my assless chaps.
I don't know where to go with that. Carter O'Donnell, a massive addition, obviously, and he signed, per my sources, through 2027. So a long-term commitment for his hometown team. That said, as you said, Jason, this is a guy, he's never played in the CFL, was an all-Canadian at the University of Alberta, but he hasn't played with the yard off the ball since 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to take some time to adjust, and I don't see him going in there and starting this week and single-handedly stopping this Calgary Stampeders pass rush. I think he's a great addition again, but this is a short timeline, and he's going to need some time to get accustomed to everything that goes into playing offensive line in 3-down football. So I've got the Stamps here. I'm happy to eat the points. For JC Abbott and his assless chaps, I'm John Hodge. We thank you as always for listening to our 3-Down Nation podcast. These were our picks for week 14. Please rejoin us Sunday or Monday this week with Justin Dunk to break down all the action. We'll see you then.